Ladies and gentlemen, viewers, subscribers, friends, families, this is Darwin, and I want to welcome you once again to the Russie's Empowerment Hour, another series, and which we always talk with very interesting personalities and persons of various backgrounds and professionalism. So today is no different. And we want to challenge that different story today, one that we many persons aspire to take on. It's a simple road, and on the other hand, it's also a hard road. It depends on the perspective that you look at. Now, today we want to introduce to you a very important guest that is eagerly waiting to speak with us and to share with us the vast knowledge that she holds. Now, today I want to introduce to you Mrs. Jennifer Campbell. Mrs. Campbell, how are you today? Welcome to Russie's Brosis.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Darwin. It's a pleasure. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you for asking. Very good. And normally we just I just introduce myself, and then you introduce yourself. Tell us about the human that you are, and then we go to introducing what we want to talk about today.
Wonderful. The human that I am a wonderful, beautiful Black woman. I'm from Trinidad. My family is born and raised in Trinidad. Most of us are still here, are all here. We have very few left at Trinidad now. My affiliation with Russie's, as you know, obviously everyone from Russie's is Jamaican, but I am the very proud wife of a Russie's graduate. And that's what brings me here with you today. We are been married now for 22 years. We have 4 beautiful daughters, all of which will be college graduates within the next few years. We have 2 that are done. 1 is on her way to be done in December, and 1 just started.
Excellent.
That's pretty much it. I think I am a nurturer by nature and love giving information and time to people and good leaders. So I think that's me in a nutshell.
Very good. Very good. Interesting that you should say you have 4 daughters. You're dating and married for 22 years to not only a Jamaican, but a past stalwart of Russie's.
Yes.
And he's going to be mad at me for saying this, but
Okay.
I have to say it anyway.
Okay.
We discussed this today. It's something I said to my daughters. I said, African-oriented women like yourself have the best brains in the universe. Guys, you can be mad at me if you want, but it's a fact. I've come to realize that the women of our race are some of the most brilliant minds that I have ever come across. And maybe I need to travel some more to find out more, but that's what I have come to understand.
Well, I take that as I humbly accept that compliment, and I thank you. And I'm sure your daughters were very pleased to have you say that to them as well.
Of course, it's there. It goes without saying. However, you come to us today, and you represent not only the company that you are representing, but you also represent another story before that company came about. I want you to, let's get into that part of you that was before you started what we're going to talk about today, the educator that you were, the hands-on person.
I consider myself an educator by nature only because education has always been important to me. From my mom all the way down, she led by example. And my mom was a hard worker, single mom of 3. I have 2 older brothers. And she toiled and worked very, very hard and went to school as well at the same time. So education has always been very important to our family. And so I knew that once I had children, I would also do the same. But, education in this country, as many of us will know that have been here for more than 10 years, realize that it's not something that's very easy. It's not about just sending your children to school and just assuming that everything is going to be wonderful. It made me and forced me to be an active parent and not just, dressing my children appropriately and making sure they had food to go to school. It was more getting involved and knowing the laws of education and understanding what was happening behind the scenes and what they were teaching my children and what I needed to teach my children at home to reinforce what it was I needed them to know prior to getting into the doors of an area that was not made for us. So that was my journey. Since then, I've went into different industries. I've been in magazine publishing. I've been in banking. I owned my own restaurant for a while. And then I just did exactly what I think God sent me to do. And that was to be a mentor to children, and basically got into higher ed and started doing scholarship and development for students. And I found myself walking around the campus and looking for students that look a lot like me and teaching them what it was to matriculate and how to matriculate and how to read your program and your degree track to understand what it was that you were doing. So it was more than just sitting at a desk and just saying, oh yeah, I have a job. My job was bigger than what they were paying me for. It was for what God sent me to do. So that was my trajectory, and it stayed that way. I was a high school teacher for a few years. I also did substitute teaching. And interestingly enough, because I understood what the system was, despite my education and my ability to be certified, I promised myself that I wouldn't get certified, so that way I wouldn't fall victim to being used in a bureaucracy of losing the joy of teaching. So I did it kind of, underhandedly, and made my own rules and taught what I knew my children needed to learn. I was the teacher that, I have a girlfriend that's been a teacher for years. I was the teacher that I wish I had. So, and I continue to do that now. And the way Retention Strategies was born is because I was teaching and my contract ended. And I realized that it was time for me to try to monetize my knowledge and to kind of give away the information that I needed to people that look like me so they can be successful. So that's how Retention Strategies Unlimited was born.
If I should say it, that's an awesome resume in just, plain language right there. Now, how do you get back from that? You started a company out of your insight there. And you, just like you said, to put it in your own words, you started a foundation pretty much of persons who looked like you. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because many persons, maybe, young ladies, young girls also even, will, see institutions and corporations and will think to themselves, the persons that are in control, the leadership roles, they don't look like they do. And they may start to think, why? How do I get there? It's impossible. They might want to give up. They have dreams, but it's only there in their dreams. So a lot of girls will want to just wait to go to sleep, because that's where their secure base is. Now you have come up with this dream of starting a company that the name, how did you come up with a name like that?
When you work in higher ed, retention is something that's very huge on the list of all higher ed administrators. Basically, it's the concept of trying to understand what it is that they need to do in order to keep students in the building and keep them in the seats. Unfortunately, our children tend to end up dropping out by the end of sophomore year or a little before, usually by spring of sophomore year, because for all kind of different reasons, mostly finances. But what they weren't also seeing is that there's some aspects of higher ed that wasn't being touched, especially when you have to, again, you remember that the system wasn't set up for us, educating us. So the history of many of the schools in this country, is not set up to give us the full experience of college. We end up having to come into the buildings and creating them ourselves. Of course, hence why we have so many HBCUs, right? So
yes, absolutely.
But we tend to try to go to the college that wants us the most, but they might want us the most, but they really just want us on paper as opposed to wanting us there. So it's important to understand the big picture and realize the importance of picking the right school for yourself.
Understood. And a lot of parents might be okay. So let's start from the retention strategies. Is an institution that, or you represent an institution that it's also family oriented because you are a family oriented person. So you're geared towards helping the family structure to remain that institution that grows and builds the minds of our fabric. And that's what impressed me most of all when I had this conversation with you. And to see that you have grown it to become an institution now. And I want you to talk about, you know, how you come about making it so intricate to gear towards family and to be what it is today.
Well, I would say that education is something is different for everybody, right? And its importance in the household is where you start your education in the first place. Without your family, you're not really understanding what the expectation of your educational success and academic success is. It starts from home. So,
Yes.
we come from families of, I mean, I can think about my mom. The most education she got was an associate's degree. She then went on to be a hospital police officer. So not your traditional schooling, but education was important to her. So for us, the expectation of school was always very high. And if you go, obviously you always want to do better than your parents because that's the reason why they toiled in the first place, is to make sure that you have a better opportunity than them. So what better way than to bring everybody, the parents as well as the children, to the table in order for them to get part of the process? Because sometimes I found in my clients, even though you have a parent that didn't go to college and has 3 or 4 jobs and doesn't really understand the ins and outs of doing all of the filing of the FAFSAs and the applications and writing essays and doing those things, they rely on the school authorities and administrators to kind of come in and step in and do that for the child. And honestly, parents usually have a concept, if we didn't go to college, we assume that our children are a lot smarter than we are, right? So,
Yes.
oh, you got it with the help of your teacher, you'll be fine. But the truth is that, you know, what's missing in that is the student actually wants the parent to be involved. They're
Yes.
hoping, they want to sit with the parent and be able to bounce questions off of them and they get answers, or even just learn together, because the process is really for them as well. Because as a student, you want to make your parents proud, and that's to finish college and walk across that stage. As a parent, you want to be able to have that conversation with your colleagues and say, yes, my child is in college and he or she is about to graduate and she's studying this, and they're doing, it's a proud moment, right? So
Yes.
why not allow them all to be sitting at the table and to be part of the process? It's very important to do that.
Listening to you talk about the parent, and you mentioned earlier in your statement that some parents might not have the opportunity of being educated to that level that they're pushing or that their child is currently at. So they're not able to help with, maybe homework, and sometimes it gets really frustrating. So I'm trying to think now, with you being in the capacity that you are, how do the parents assist? What's the conversation going to be like for that parent with that child?
So what I do is I actually have them both sitting together. I sit with the parents a lot about their expectation. And usually it's just very blanketed. It's more like a very simple statement. I just want her to be okay. And I just want her
Yes.
to get into college. And I just want them to finish college. And that's what I worked for. And that's great.
Yes.
There's a level of shame that comes with that. So, I have a master's in counseling too. So it
Right.
helps to be able to communicate well and to listen well and to see what adults see as a shortcoming and not to shame them any more than they're shamed already. So you and I had a very good conversation about self-confidence, and
Yes.
I see you kind of use that and spin that into the title of tonight's discussion. So
Yes.
building the self-confidence is exactly where I step in and help the parent do that. So it's not just about having the communication with your child about going to college. It's really sitting down and saying, so how are you about college? How are you about school? How are you about your education? What is it that you'd like to see in yourself that you don't see in yourself right now, where you don't think you're worthy enough to have that conversation with your child? Like, are you having difficulty having communications in school with the child's teachers? And if so, why? You know, do you feel inadequate? Are there things I can help you with to build that confidence for you? So that way you can be part of the process with your child. Um, in my capacity as a parent, I've seen so many different, parents, whether they're very well educated, they're very successful, or those that have no idea, can't even speak English, but
Yes.
quite frankly, at the one thread that they do share is that they're parents and they all love their children and they all want their children to succeed. Regardless of what their resources are to get there, they're all just very well want the same thing for their children. So I treat them all the same. And it's important to see them all the same.
Yes. So, so the communication is, of course, very important. And I remember talking to Joseph, that's your husband, about that. We have conversations almost every day about, different various topics. Self-confidence is one of the main thing that I deliberately did that because you represent that. You're sitting in that space right now. You represent confidence, because if you did not have that confidence, you would not be where you are right now. So that alone tells me that persons can emulate you. You are like a role model for many persons at this moment right now. So we talk about the parents. The communication is very important. That conversation is vital. Now, the question comes up now of I mean, affordability. How does one? What about you talk about that?
Interestingly enough, this because of education rules and laws, finances are a thing, right? So what used to be poor, right, is now considered middle class. And then what
Exactly.
is, you understand? So
Yes.
we are considered, those of us that work every day and toil and have a hard time making ends meet, they consider us to be middle class, which is ridiculous. But they only change those guidelines so that way they can give less federal funding for our schooling, right?
Yes.
So what I teach and what I tell my clients, I try to catch them before high school. The best time for you to have the conversation with your children about your expectation of education, which is the difference between involvement, right? Is you need to sit with your kids very early and let them know, I expect you to go to college. And yes, I am working 3 and 4 jobs and I'm not home often and I expect you to help me take care of your siblings. And yes, you have chores and you have to do things in the house, but my expectation of you is that you would have a better opportunity in life. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is with education. So whether it was finding the resources for that child to be able to be successful, but along with that is setting the expectation very early. And you can apply for college scholarships as early as middle school. And they basically hold the money there for you. And then when it's time for you to go to college, it's a full ride. And those are things that are very important for people to understand. And yes, it's college life is a very big bill. Part of the conversation that I have with my families is be honest with your kids about what it is you can afford, because social media is a thing, right? And
Yes.
the kids now, they're microwave kids and they want to go to the college that their friends are going to so they could turn up, right? It's time to party,
Of
it's time to
course.
go on and get, have a good time. It's not time to be free. But the
Yes.
truth is that unless you have that conversation with your children, that listen, there's no college fund, there's no trust fund, there's nothing there except for opportunities for you to go to college. I suggest that you get in line and you figure it out and you make sure that your grades are in order and that you're a well-rounded student, so that way your package is what's enticing to colleges to get in. I mean, there's no question enrollment is always an issue for colleges, so you want to be part of that group of students that every college wants, because the more opportunities you have for merit scholarships, the more opportunities you have to go to school for free.
And I was looking at your mission,
Mhm.
and I want to read the first sentence of your mission because it jumps out at me when I looked at it.
Okay.
It says, our mission is to empower and strengthen students and parents in the process of college access and retention. That is saying a lot.
It is. It is. And again, You know, I started this conversation. You asked me who I am, and I tell you that I am a leader. And I say that I'm a leader because I value the importance of everyone that sits at the table. I value whatever level they are, and I meet them where they are. And the only way for you to empower anyone else to be a leader is for you to meet them where they are and allow their wings to fly as they go along. So it's so interesting. I was talking to my daughter this morning, and I said to her, as women, right, we're always looking to fix things, right? We always want to fix things, fix people, take care of everybody and be a nurturer and all of those things. And you'll see a bird that might have a broken wing, and you'll nurture that bird back to health, and then one day that you just fly away. And you don't know when the wing was fine or when it got cured or anything else. But guess what? The wing is good and it's flying, and the bird is flying now comfortably. And you did your job, right?
Yes.
Your heart might be broken because the wing, the bird has flown away and left you, but the job is done, right? So
Yes.
it's no different. It's being able to understand who people are, what they are. You'll find a lot of adults now that didn't finish their degree or wasn't able to do that, and you get an opportunity. I have one client who actually registered for school because their child was going to college. So those kind of things happen, but it's because you meet someone that respects you as a human being, that understands where you are and can respect where you are and show you how to get to the next level. A lot of people have a problem with showing people how to get to the next level without judging them.
Yes.
If you can do that with some compassion and some empathy and some respect, it goes a long way.
Yes. Now, that is confidence right there. Speaking of a bird, getting back the strength to fly again, that takes confidence to be able to do that. So I want to now tie everything together in terms of, because Jamaica has a lot of athletes, student athletes, and football, athletics, you name it. However, the avenues of exposing themselves educationally sometimes are a little limited. There are a lot of, most oftentimes, community colleges, and the pride of these parents and the pride of these students, a lot of them want more than just a community college education. It's a start. I'm not knocking a community college. It's a very great stepping stone. However, some of these the parents might have gone to the community college already. Some might have not. So they just, you spoke about it, the educational level for each generation. Once you want each one to get better. So the parent might have gone to the community college and then they couldn't afford the university. So this is where you come in now. A student athlete, I want you to give me that scenario. A student athlete, how can you help a student athlete to recognize a college degree?
Well, let me say this first before I move on to the student athlete piece.
Okay.
Here in the States, right?
Yes.
And you go to community college, it's free. You get a free associate's degree. That is the most intelligent, most brilliant thing you could possibly do for your family. Is to go to the community college and get a free education and come out with a free associate's degree. The trick to do it, though, is to go to the community college in the honors program, and you get an honors program advisor. And that honors program advisor, from the very first day that you arrive, puts you on a track for your 4-year college degree. And if you maintain your grade, they will automatically take you in on a full ride for the final 2 years of that 4-year college.
Awesome.
So don't knock community college. That is
never.
I will say that.
Yes.
I don't care what school you go to. Yes, it's a great talking point to be able to go to the Ivy Leagues of the world. But I guarantee you that when you get into your profession and you get into wherever you're going to work, unless you have established a brotherhood or sisterhood at these colleges, would it resonate with anybody that you're working with or you're going into business with? At the end of the day, when you fill out that application for school, they're just going to ask you which degree you have.
That's it.
So everything and every piece of paper that you've earned is very valuable. I don't care what college you've gone to. Okay?
Absolutely.
Student athletes. The operative word in that phrase is student first, right?
Yes.
What unfortunately happens to our student athletes in athletics period, especially when you're going into college, it's almost like a herding mentality. You know, you end up having the best players come to the school. As long as they can play, that's all they care about. They have a whole group of tutors and teachers and professors that are already aligned, waiting to give them the grades necessary in order for them to continue to play.
Right.
Forget how to be students, and they are focused more on being athletes. The opportunities that you have as an international player are just the same. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit more dare for you to do it, right? When you are recruited internationally, you are coming here basically on the onus of you staying at whatever college has taken you in. And no different than when you are here and you go to college to play, they own you, right?
Yes. Yes.
You have to be really, really careful about understanding that you take complete advantage of the student aspect of your scholarship. So that way you can move on further, just in case something happens to your body while you're playing. You do not want to lose the opportunity of completing your degree because your grades weren't well enough, wasn't good enough for you to play, right? So if your body's not good enough to play, your mind should always stay well enough to stay. Okay? So
Yes, very good.
That's my concept of I mean, and unfortunately, again, our students are microwave students, and they're full of social media and the hype and the making money, and they're worried not to go to the D1, I mean, not to go to the D2 or D3 schools. But I guarantee you, even though they might not have a lot of scholarship, if you're a good student, you can get a free education going there as well.
Awesome. I have this other question that just popped in my head. You have persons who want to do vocational, trade, to put it in layman terms. How do you facilitate vocational students?
So you mean as an international student or just anywhere, general?
Just in general.
So vocational colleges are actually very good, but they're very expensive because they're considered private colleges. If a student knows that that's the track that they want to do, I usually encourage them to go to a technical high school. And the reason why I tell them to do that is because those high schools at graduation already have relationships with the technical schools when it's time for them to go in. So usually, sometimes they can go on to an apprenticeship at night at the same high school and then move into the technical school as they go along. So they're pretty much working as they're learning, as opposed to just trying to spend ridiculous amounts of money for a private school to learn a trade that you're just learning from scratch. It's better for you to set the trajectory very early. That's really, really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what facility do you have then to accommodate, or do they have scholarships for persons in vocational subjects or areas?
They don't have a lot of scholarships. What they do have, you usually go the corporate route. So say, for instance, you are like a plumber or an electrician. You will go into an apprenticeship with an electrical company or a plumbing company, and they would sponsor your education, because a lot of these colleges pay for your tuition as you work. So as you work in the company, they will pay for you that way. So again, it's, I know as young teenagers, you don't necessarily know what you want to do, but of course, the earlier the better. It's definitely best. But especially if you're doing and you want to do into vocational training, it's better for you to know what that is before you get into high school. When you get into high school, you pick the high school that has that vocational training from the door, and you usually graduate with some sort of certification in high school in that industry, and they will partner you with a corporation that is already doing it, so you can automatically get your internship and your working hours for your trade started. And hopefully the company is big enough that it can offset the cost of your tuition.
Very good, very good. So for the academic person now who has this scholarship, I mean, is it a much easier transition for them?
No, you know, I think people. I think what happens is people tend to think that one person is smarter than the other person because of what school you went to or whether or not you went to technical school or not or whatever. That doesn't mean your brain doesn't work. It just means it works differently, right?
Yes.
I know many people that have gone. I mean, we had a president once that graduated from Yale with a C average. So I mean, is he more intelligent than the person that went to a smaller college and graduated, magna cum laude? I mean, I beg to differ, right? So, I would say no. I would say that absolutely. It depends on it depends on the student. It depends on how they apply themselves. It depends on what they want to do. And ultimately, people do what they want to do, right? Now, I tell my parents all the time, don't force your kids to go to college. I say it all the time. Do not force your children to go to college to have the conversation with your colleagues to say that your children are in college, because you're going to be embarrassed, right? And you're going to spend a lot of money that you don't have, right? So those honest conversations have to come prior to them even considering college.
So how important is the mental health of the parents? I know, they have to lead by example and, have that proper conversation, but how important is that mental health of the parent to assist their children?
Okay, so let's think about right now during COVID, we're doing virtual education right now, right?
Yes.
How many of your colleagues are sitting with their children? How many on this call, on this Zoom, are sitting
every
with
day, exactly,
virtual learning and going crazy, right?
Yes. I've seen some videos.
Yes. So if you can think of that, then you have an idea of what people are going through as far as their mental health with regard to being involved in the process. And that's why I say it takes a lot of conversations and respect. And you're not getting that in virtual learning right now because it's, COVID has caused chaos, right? So
yes.
Everyone is really just trying to get along with the process and do the best they can with it, and hopefully their children come out successful, right?
Absolutely.
The last child had no graduation, no prom, started college at the dinner table. So it's a different world and it's a different time, but with conversations and patience, I think everyone can kind of get through it.
Very essential, very essential. And there's another aspect I want to look at, which I find it very important for a lot of persons. Very intelligent, very smart, just that not a good tester.
Yeah.
How do you help a person who's not a good tester, but very good conversation, very intelligent? How do you help that person?
That's me. Listen, these tests that they have, the statewide exams, again, were not made for us, right? They were not made for us. That is the absolute truth, okay? And I had that conversation too earlier about the resources that come into our areas, right? If you're here, I don't care where you are in the States, if you're in a predominantly Black environment and you go to the public schools, more than 30% of the kids at the public schools are going to have an IEP. And those IEP just gives more money to the schools. It has nothing to do with what services the kids are going to be getting, unless you are really a true advocate to your kid to make sure that they're getting the services that they require. Now, ultimately, our IEPs for our children are usually attached to some sort of behavior as opposed to some sort of serious, disability, right? Not too long ago, I was looking up the statistics. It's like 16% Black have IEPs through IDEA, right? IDEA, right? And that's a ridiculous number, right?
For the benefit of the persons who might not know what that means, the IEPs.
So that's an individualized education program.
Thank you.
Right. So if you have a child, let me tell you something. If your kid is in school and I'm Caribbean too, so my mom would be like, "You talk too much, right? Stop talking in class, right?" That's like the ultimate disrespect to your teachers, that you talk too much in class. What they're
Yes.
telling us as parents is that our children are bored in class because ultimately they're more intelligent than what's being taught. So challenge them, right?
Yes. Yes.
If you see that your kid is constantly getting remarks that they talk too much in school, well, she finishes her work and she gets straight A's and everything is great, but she just really just talks too much. She probably talks too much because she's bored and she's not being challenged, not because she's a disturbance, not because she needs an IEP and she has ADHD. It's because she's bored and you're not challenging her. So what
Right. Right.
children is I forced the board of education. I took them to the board of education and had them tested to make sure that they were advanced, right? So out of our four children, two of them, well, three of them actually graduated at high school at 16 in this country, which is not normal. You graduate at 18 in this country, right?
Right.
But again, if you're so the whole concept of labeling our kids as, behavior issues, it's usually because they're more brilliant than what is expected, because they're not expected to do much in school here. They're not challenged often. It depends on where you are, obviously. Everybody's situation is going to be different, but I would say
Yes.
to most parents to make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on with your child. If your child is saying school is boring, a lot of times that's saying they're not challenging me, not so much that they're bored. They're bored because they're not learning anything. And you really have to stay on top of the schools to make sure that they're getting exactly what they're getting. And I will even tell you, I met a gentleman not too long ago who had their kids had their children in the top of the top private schools, predominantly white schools. You're spending top dollar for your children to go to these schools. But I guarantee you, and you need to talk to those guidance counselors and those teachers and make sure they're not telling your children to play basketball or to go to a HBCU. You're not paying top dollar for your children to go to a predominantly white school and to expect them to go to a HBCU or any lower grade. They can go to the HBCU because that's where they want to go, but that's not
Yes.
where they should be pushed to go. They should be pushed and challenged to apply to the Ivy League schools, to challenge them to do well and to actually get in. They should not be expected not to get in, and they have to watch
Yes.
things as well. So IEPs are not quite what they really are supposed to be. They're not getting what they're supposed to. They're just getting more money into the schools. That's it.
Yes. And for a system that, on this continent, for a system that is not geared for us to succeed, or to advance as far as we would have liked to go, the testing sometimes is an hindrance. So are you saying that there are universities or colleges out there that will allow persons to, or do you know of any that will allow them to be accepted without testing?
There are hundreds of them. And if you go, there's a website called fairtest.org.
Okay.
And if you go on that website, you will see the list of all of the colleges that do not require SAT and ACT scores. And
Awesome.
now during COVID now, I believe it was California was the first state that actually made the law where they don't have to take those exams anymore. But the name of that website is fairtest.org. You go on that website, you will see a list of hundreds of colleges that do not require testing. All you really need is a great personal statement, a wonderful GPA, and have your student be very well rounded, whether they play sports or they're involved in student government or they're doing other things outside of just school. That's the place to be. Everyone doesn't test well, we already know that those tests they don't determine your intelligence, not even a little bit.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Well, it's good. Fast. I'm going to look. Is it posted on your website? So we
yes,
can always go and check it. I will type it into the groups of persons can see it. Now, this conversation we're having is mostly geared towards a family structure where there's a mother and a father and children or child. The challenge comes in now when there's a single parent in the household.
mm-hmm.
That's always a challenge. How do you suggest a single parent would you suggest they adopt the same principles, or do you have anything else to suggest how they will cope with
Absolutely.
their children?
Listen, at the end of the day, whether you're a single parent or you're a two-family home parent, you can be a two-family parent and still be a single parent. We all know that, right?
Yes, yeah,
So
absolutely.
that has one has nothing to do with the other, and one is not any more important than the other. And as far as the expectation levels, at the end of the day, your children respect you and they want to please you. They want to do well for you. They want to make sure that all that you're putting into them is coming back out, that they're doing their part. So there's no stigma for you're a married couple or you're single. I think that's only for not us, okay? Those judgment calls
Yes.
not be coming from us.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So no, I think the expectation is really set based on the communication and the level of connectedness that you have with your child, whether you're single or married.
Yes. So it doesn't matter. The parent just have to lead by example, be disciplined and structured just the same.
Yeah,
Now,
and structure requires communication. You can't necessarily just think that you're dropping all of these rules and regulations all the time, and you're not talking to your kid about what's going on a regular basis, what they're experiencing every single day. Bullying is a huge thing. Are you not sure? Are you sure that your children are not being bullied? Are you sure that they're not doing well because they might be depressed or whatever? Those, mental illness is something that's huge in our culture, and we act like it doesn't exist, but it does.
it
And
sure does.
and I think if we spent some more time paying attention to things like that maybe we would actually see. You have to think, right? We are not the children of our parents. We're not the parents of those years, right? We are different. And when our parents were growing up, it was totally different, and they wanted different for us. They wanted better for us, right? So what we are experiencing, and at the age that we are, they look at us side eye and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that." You can look at your 70 or 80-year-old mom now, and they're like, "What are you? Who told you you can wear those pants? Or why are you wearing those tight jeans? Or why are you doing whatever it is that you're doing?" It's no different. I mean, the cycle continues, right? And we just have to have really good, strong foundation with communication and love and support, and then move on from there. That's just my humble opinion.
Yes, and to piggyback onto that, I want you to keep that same mindset and talk about um, how do you teach a child how to learn, and to be empowered, to be self-confident, and to teach them outside the regular system, because sometimes this system that of learning that we are accustomed to, the child does not learn the way they want to. So teach talk about how you can help them to learn outside of the regular system.
So the reason why I think I was successful as a teacher was because differential teaching was very important to me, but I paid attention to
Yes.
differential learning, right? So
Yes.
if you have 4 students in the classroom, 4 of them are going to hear my message 4 different ways. And it
Yes.
doesn't mean that how they processed what it is that I said was incorrect. They all can get an A on the same assignment, but they heard me completely different. And as a teacher, as an educator, you have to be responsible enough to understand that those things are true. And if you
Yes.
don't take the time to pay attention to those things, then you're not going to get to that student at all. And one or two things are going to happen. That student is either going to withdraw, and they're not going to focus on what's going on in your classroom, and they're not going to be successful, right? Or
Yes.
they're just going to do just enough to get by so they can get out of your classroom. Either one is not beneficial to the student. So it's important for you to kind of look at who they are. It's no different than getting in relationship, right? I said every relationship is the same kind of relationship. It matters of you have to communicate, find out who you are, find out what's going on with you, so that way I can teach you appropriately. And
Yes.
to this day, I still have many of my students that I taught over the years that still communicate with me and connect with me for that same reason. It's because you listen to who they are first before you can actually teach them. And no different for a parent, right? we have our expectation. If you don't meet it, it's like, what is the matter with you? But it's not really what's the matter with you. It's more what happened today. Are you okay? Change the narrative a little bit as opposed to something's wrong with you to what's going on today. Are you okay? Did anything happen today that I don't know about? You want to share
Yes.
something today? Our children taught us how to be honest with them, right?
Yes.
We want to show our children that everything is fine, that everything is great, everything is perfect, right? But that's not reality, right? So when they're experiencing things that are hard, to try to come home to people who want to paint a picture that everything is wonderful and perfect makes it difficult for them to be honest with themselves, and honestly just kind of starts looking at themselves as if they're the problem. One thing that our kids tell us is that it's important for us to be honest with them and tell them the truth. And we've learned how to communicate the truth so that way we can have a more profound conversation with them about life and what they're going through, so that way we can actually help them to be successful. You can't help someone to be successful if you don't know who they are, right? So
Very true.
I think that's important.
As you talk about that, there's also like this thing that comes to mind where, resources. A lot of parents might not be aware of where to turn to. They want to help. They may not have all the funds they need, but they want to help and they're eager to help. But I believe this is where your company comes in to bridge that gap, to transition them for the support that they're looking for, but getting that information out to them. How do you do that?
I have the website. That's number one. I have contacts with regard to social media. I'm constantly posting free information. I told you originally that I started this company to monetize my knowledge, right? You're not supposed to give your stuff away for free, but
no,
shame on me to do that, right? But I believe in the principle of Sankofa, and that's to reach back and to help those that are coming behind me. You reach back and you fetch it. Basically, you reach back and you give a hand to those that are behind and bring them up. And I'm not talking about they're less than me or they're not any better than me. It's just that some information they're not knowledgeable about, and it's important for me to share that information. So however it gets out there, it just gets out there. As far as I'm concerned, God will provide the money eventually, right? So
yes.
I would say they can contact me on my website. They can contact me social media, however the case may be. However, the information is out there if you have the time to go and research it as well, too. There's certain things that I've learned because I've worked in the industry, but more importantly, if you want to know, there's so many things and so many resources out there that you can find the information that you need for you to move forward, for sure.
Yes. And I want you now I remember talking to you about this. The big picture. Let's talk about that big picture that you see, let's talk about that big picture.
Let's talk about the big picture. So right now, for the past few months, I've been focusing on assisting international students in this wonderful process of coming to the States to study. I've had one thus far Zoom call globally with a leading immigration attorney that's out of Indiana. It's called Vista Law. The partner and owner is Fatima Johnson. Very brilliant. She has great partners that know the ins and outs of being an international student and supporting him in all things immigration. We had students from Chile and Jamaica and Trinidad, and we had some from Dominican Republic that we've spoken to. I just had another one the other day, again, international students for athletes. So I want retention strategies to be the go-to place for all things education. I want retention strategies to be the person at the table that has some empathy and consideration for those that have a voice that are not often heard and respected, and bring those voices to the table when they're planning things for those that look like us. That's my big picture. And I'm painting it as we go along.
I get that. I do get that. And it's it's brilliant. And I want to ask, can you explain, or you talk about international students, and you also talk about, immigration. So I want you to explain to us, I mean, is there a way you can facilitate students who are, say, in another country that comes to you? How is that? How do you process that?
So
Do you help them to acquire the visas, the necessary documentation, stuff like that?
Well, no, I don't do that part. Because ultimately you have to work directly with your country when you're doing those things.
Okay.
I do, like I said, I have a great friend that's a great immigration attorney. So if you need an immigration attorney, I'll be more than happy to do that. I stay in my lane, and law is not my lane. Okay. So what I do as international students is assist them in finding support once they're here.
Yes.
I'm also a board member for an organization called Jam Pact. I'm not sure if you familiar with that organization.
No.
And I am currently introducing a program with Jam Pact called International Student Services, where we're building an infrastructure for international students that are here, and they come and they unfortunately are just kind of dropped here, and they have no help at all. They're missing food, they have no clothes, they can't travel back and forth regularly for holidays. Obviously you can't work while you're here, and campus, like on-campus jobs are limited. So helping them find resources in that way. I'm kind of looking at your comments on here, and I see that someone's asking, Troy Malcolm is asking, can you explain the process to acquire F1 visa for international students? Do you see that?
Yes, that's why I brought that up.
So there are 5 arduous steps to that process, right? And probably step 0 before you get to step 1 will be to make sure that you have enough financial backing in order for you to do that. Why? Because America has this thing with their F1 visa, where they think it's important for you to be able to show 4 years worth of money in your bank account that says that you can pay your full tuition for the school that you are being enrolled in, that you can pay for your housing in full, that you can eat, transport yourself, and move around for exactly 4 years, or however long your degree is.
Right.
Now, what I found with the students that I've been speaking to in the past few months is that they do that from donations from their family when they're at home. And everybody pools their resources together because this is a great opportunity for the child, for the student. They put the money in the bank. The child gets the F1 visa, everything is wonderful, and then they get here and they cannot survive because that money is not their money. Their money is just for the visa, and then you have to give the money back to your family, which makes sense in all honesty, right? But like they say, come see me, come live with me, 2 totally different things. So you might have family members or friends that are here that have always said to you, oh yes, let Charlie come. If Charlie could go to school, he could come and stay by me, no problem, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, we've heard it.
Then the child gets here and you're there, and the child has a couch to sleep on. But then the child becomes a problem, and this is a problem, and that is a problem, and Charlie's here too long, and where's the money from Charlie? And Charlie's not paying his way, and all these things. And then Charlie is stuck by himself at school, and he can't really continue, right? So what happens then? Charlie doesn't want to come back home with nothing, so Charlie tries to stay and work his way through and try to get through, but then he's doing things illegally, so he can't finish school. You understand what I'm saying? It's just a terrible cycle, right? It's like a hamster wheel. So
it is.
It's important to be able to have those steps in order, like exactly concrete, before you even venture into this process, right? So, you have the step 1 where you determine what school that you want to go to. You then apply to the school, and once the school enrolls you, they then get you the I-20 so that way you can go and apply for the F1 visa. But this is after you have all of your money and everything already set and ready to go, because the money issue is huge, right?
Yes.
You then, after that, you get the F1. I mean, you apply for the F1 with the I-20 from the school, and you wait for the response. And then you have to take that I-20 with you when you have your appointment to show that you can afford to go to the school. Where are you going to stay? Are you staying on campus? how much it is. They have to show the cost, your cost of living. You have to show that you can pay your cost of living and all of those things. And then the process starts with your background check and all of that stuff before you start. So usually it's important to at least start the process at least a year out, at minimum, I would say. I know that student athletes have a different process because the school is basically sponsoring them to come and play for them. But again, you have to be aware of the whole concept of them owning you. Like, are you coming there to play for them? Are you going to have any money in your pocket for yourself? Because that's not part of the deal. So those are all kinds of things that you have to consider. And unless, if you are negotiating for anyone on this line and their child is negotiating a student athlete scholarship to come here and play, make sure in your contract that they are assuring and guaranteeing that your child is going to have a job on campus consistently. Like, make it part of the contract that they have to be accountable for your child to always have a job on campus, for them to have money in their pocket, because that's the hardest, most difficult thing for them to deal with while they're here.
So that's the immigration part of it. A person has to prepare themselves, of course. So I hope, Troy, you that's the answer that you were looking for, because I was just about to ask you that question when you I'm glad you answered it. So this college that all these children and us as parents want our children to attend, do you view it as is it a business or just a lot of persons say it's a scam, it's a ripoff?
Yes, it's a legal scam. Yes, it is. Gone are the days of when colleges was competing for the student. Now it's students competing for the colleges, right?
Yes.
It's unfortunate, and it is so much a business that they could care less if you can afford it or not. That's why I say part of my communication with my clients, parents, and students is to have that honest conversation with your children. The average parent that works regularly and toils has no trust fund, has no 509 for your kid. You have no savings for there's no college fund, nothing like that. It's all on their brilliance in order for them to go to college, quite frankly. It's outside scholarships that they're going to apply to that they may and may not get. Although there's more than $5 billion worth of scholarships from different companies and organizations out there that are unclaimed every single year. So it's really getting yourself organized. It's really paying attention to what it is that you want. Yes, it's okay that you're going to go to college and you don't know what your major is. However, understand that that's going to be a little difficult for you because you're going to go into college undeclared. And that's fine too. But if you know that you're going into college and you, as a parent, you college, but I don't know what I want to study, I'm just going to go to college. Yeah. Guess what? You're going to go to college, but you're going to go and take advantage of this 2 years free in community college. You're going to go into this honors program and you're going to figure it out. Yep. And then by the time you're done with this associate's degree, you will know exactly what you want to study. So that when you move on to your 4-year college experience with a nice scholarship, as well as a brilliant mind for you to know what you're doing with your trajectory. Like, there's no playing games, like none of that. College is no longer an opportunity to play games. It's really a serious adult conversation that you need to have with your children prior to them going. So
very well.
Have the conversation as early as possible, I say. I was telling you, and I talked about that too, that it's from that my dissertation topic came from. It's like, does parental expectation, not involvement, but expectations, right?
Yes.
Does it assist or does it encourage college preparedness in high school students? And that's where it comes from. That's where the topic was born, is because people, you don't realize that you're putting an expectation on someone. We put expectations on people every single day, right?
Every day, yes.
And no better than your children. If you sit and you have a conversation with your child right now, they'll look at you side-eyed because they'd probably be afraid to tell you what your expectation level is. And they're like, oh God, I don't want to have this conversation right now, Mom or Dad, right? So.
It's not easy having that conversation with a teenager. Yeah. As a parent. So, I guess this is,
Why why do you think it's not? I shouldn't be interviewing you,
But
but why do you think it's not easy to have that?
you know, for as a parent, sometimes, just like I mentioned before, sometimes not speaking for myself, but I've listened to conversations where, depending on how that parent was, that space that they are from, that environment that they're from, the child now has the opportunity to intermingle with and have to in the space where they're socializing with many different persons. So they adapt and they adopt some of these tendencies. So they tend to be thinking a little faster than their parents and a little farther, a little wider. And they have a more open-mindedness. And sometimes the parents cannot keep up with that.
Well,
So I guess this
is
yes.
it that the parent can't keep up with that, or we meet people on a regular basis as parents all the time. We have to conform to certain behaviors at our workplace all the time. Who you are in the chat room for Rusty's Brosis is not the same person that you are at your place of business. Who you
should not be.
Well, it should not be, and I'm sure you are not, right? And they're no different. The person that they are with us is not the person that they're going to be with their friends and their peers. But again, the expectation is there, but you have the power to lay that expectation, that foundation for how you want to communicate with your kids. So to say that it's difficult for them, if it's hard for you to talk to your child, you think it's going to be easy for them to talk to you?
Oh, let me tell you, it's hard that way. It's even harder for them because they have no idea what's happening out there.
It's going to be harder for them because you're the leader.
Yes. And just as you mentioned about Rusty's Brosis, I wanted to touch a little bit about this, the benefits back and from. How does, you benefit from Rusty's Brosis? How does Rusty's Brosis benefit from you? Can there be a way in which there can be benefits?
Well, again, even through just retention strategies alone, I'm consistently helping any kind of student, and international students are on that list as well. As far as mentoring and those kind of things, we originally had started communication with Rusty's through my husband's family. He's the Campbell family. His brother was Henwood Campbell, deceased. He was a math teacher at Rusty's. I believe he passed away in February of '98. God rest his soul, right? And
yes,
we wanted to make sure to have some sort of legacy there for him, and we were interested in starting a scholarship for students there. But that kind of is still in the works. But also, since then, my husband has been, obviously, he played hockey, he played field hockey, but he loves soccer till he dies, right? Like yes. He eats, dreams, sleeps, everything is soccer for him. Excuse me, football, right?
Football, yes, it is football.
So he oftentimes, as he goes to Jamaica often, he always collects soccer boots to take down to the school. And just recently he was able to collect a lot of track boots for the girls to start their track team, and they actually won. So Rusty's is always a part of this house, and it's always going to be a part of the soul of him, and whatever he needs and wants, and whatever's part of his soul is always going to be a part of mine. So it's important to always continue what you started. And again, you have the spirit of Sankofa, and some people are not doing as well as you, and you think even if they're doing as well as you, everyone needs to get a little hand and some assistance in a way. So the partnership with Rusty's is there for us as a family, but for retention strategies specifically, I'm always here as a support system for the group if they ever need any information with regard to helping their students get through this process of college access, or even just starting the conversations with your students before they get to high school about college and college access and what your expectations are as a parent, and even
yes.
just listening to them about what their expectations are,
Yes, absolutely. So I'm beg your pardon. I'm looking forward to see where we could create that pipeline.
I am definitely open to any kind of communication or any kind of ideas that you all have. As you can see, retention strategies is a plethora of information.
It is.
And wherever I get in and fit in for you all, I'm open to having that discussion and to continue the communication and the relationship for sure.
Yes. You also mentioned that you're a counselor.
Yes. So, interestingly enough, I started my passion for counseling as in marriage, right? So, uh, my husband Joseph and I used to do that at our church and talk to married couples, and we had a wonderful marriage group and ministry at church. And then since then, we still are look to and look to mentor as well as be mentored by married couples. You know, you're supposed to keep those kinds of. If you're married, you try to stay a circle. Your circle has married couples as well.
Yes.
Um, so that is my love. That's when my love for counseling came. But you know, it wasn't until later that I realized that my love for counseling just came from being able to communicate well and having a calm demeanor, and people just tend to come to me to talk about everything and anything. And you know, sometimes you have life experiences that kind of take you around the gamut of all things, right? So sharing that information has sharing that information has become part of my life as well.
So, talking about that, I'm a parent, so why should I choose retention strategies to assist my child to get better, to get a better education?
Um, why talk to retention strategies? Well, one, retention strategies has the experience as well as the knowledge about what it is that you're not learning on a regular basis from whether it be your guidance counselor and or just your experience in school alone. Times have changed so drastically that the systems have changed as well. And I have figured out, or I am very comfortable in having those communications and sitting down and teaching you how to, as opposed to just giving you a piece of paper with showing you the steps to do it. I am willing to have the patience and the time and the understanding to show you how to get through the process.
Very well. So as we wrap up, I just want you to let us know then, because we talk about this today, and what I really wanted to ask you now, it was based on that section where we talk about you being a counselor. So I asked you now, why choose retention strategies? Now, my next follow-up is on that would be something like, I have my child coming to your, you made a choice for me, my child is happy. How do you help them to be successful? Do you continue helping them after you assist them in putting them into a facility? Do you have a continued support system?
Absolutely. Retention strategy stays with the student throughout the entire freshman year. My first interaction with them once they get into the college and celebrating and all of those things is sitting down with them and teaching them how to matriculate. Depending on what your degree is, every college has a course calendar for each student where they're supposed to understand what their degree requirements are and
Yes.
teaching them how to do that on their own. And interestingly enough, every college's system is set up to do it for you, but they just don't teach
Yeah.
you how to do that. What they do is force you to sit with an advisor. So here's the trick of sitting with an advisor when you're in college is anyone can be an advisor, right? Once you're a faculty member, you're an advisor. And say, for instance, I am a business faculty member and I need to fill my classes. But for whatever reason, because of the lot of students that I have, many of the students that I have are nursing students, right? Every degree requires an elective. So I need to fill my classes. So you, Miss Nursing student, or Sir, Mr. Nursing student, I want you to come and take this business class. And you can take it as an elective and everything will be wonderful. However, you are in your freshman year, and really what you should be taking is your psychology classes, your English classes, your math classes, and an English or something like that, as opposed to taking a business class, which is heavy in reading and heavy in textbook time, and taking away from you spending the time necessary for you to focus on the classes that are absolutely mandatory for your college degree. So just sitting with each student, my clients, and I teach them how to do that on their own, so they're not relying on the advisor to plan their schedules on a regular basis. So yes, so thank you for asking that question.
Yes, that because a lot of persons will want to know. I mean, you're like you're supporting. You invited us to come and talk with you. We are here, and we have spoken. Now we're on that journey. We need some support system to ensure that the continued success of the children. So as we draw to a close now, I will leave you to first. I would like you to let us know the forum. Let us know your contact information so that persons who are interested can get in touch with you should they be interested and want to be a part of it. And it's a very fascinating uh, institution, I can tell. So can you put your information out there so persons can be get in touch with you?
Sure. My website is Retention Strategies Unlimited. So it's www.retentionstrategies with an S unlimited. It's abbreviated UNLTD.com. I am also on social media, Instagram as well as Facebook. Same thing, Retention Strategies Unlimited. I'm also on LinkedIn. My phone number is 973-307-0850. And you can reach me on email at info@retentionstrategiesunlimited.com as well. So you can that way. And I see also in your chat that Troy Malcolm says to me to please elaborate on my yearly back to school drive. Another way that we stay connected to Jamaica is this is year 13 for our family that we have a huge, which has turned into a huge backyard barbecue with about 300 to 400 people each year. All food, all drinks are free, everything. The only thing we require of our guests is to bring a school supply donation. And we always fill about 6 barrels full of school supplies, and we send it down to Lucy Primary and Escher Primary each year. So this year in COVID, we couldn't do the barbecue for obvious reasons. So Joseph came up with a great plan to do a barbecue drive-by, and we called it, what did we call it? Drop, pick and go, something like that, where we had jerk chicken and festival made in the backyard. You dropped off your donation, we dropped it in the barrel, and we gave you some jerk chickens festival and a nice drink, and we said thank you, and we still collected 4 barrels worth of stuff. So Escher Primary and Lucy Primary each got 2 barrels full of school supplies this year. So we're grateful to the support of all the people that still come out and do that with us each year.
Okay, thank you so much. And let me just double check with the chat to see if there are any other questions. Let's see if there anyone else who might have another question for you.
Okay.
Just give me 1 second. Let me check here.
Oh, what about Middlesex Primary? Sydney Thorpe says, what about Middlesex Primary?
Yes, I just saw that. So how can you address that? That's a primary school of in Hanover.
Oh, is it really? Okay. We weren't familiar with that school, Sydney. Feel free to send us that information as well.
Yes. I guess probably he was asking about how would you, facilitate children who get out of, but that's a primary school that you get there at 12, then you go to the high school.
Oh, okay. We really more so take care of the younger ones for obvious reasons. I mean, they have a rough time as well with parents, especially in COVID now. The principals there were telling us, Mrs. Jackson and Mrs. Wright were telling us this year how much more difficult it is because a lot of the parents work in the hotel industry. So we've been trying to tap into that. And with Jam Packed also, we've been working with getting involved with the Education Association down there to make sure that, that side of the island is getting some assistance too.
Yes, of course. And how do you prepare yourself, and do you administer your strategies out to during this COVID coronavirus environment? How do you adapt to that?
Well, the blessing is that Wi-Fi works and you have a laptop and you just make it happen. You just have to roll with it. I'm a great proponent in pivoting. And, you know,
Yes.
you have to change with the times. We cannot just sit stagnant and not learn new things. And we're forever learners. I am a lifelong learner, and I enjoy learning from any age group at all. And, you know, you do what you have to do to really not just to get by, but to be the greatest service to the most that you possibly can.
Thank you so much. I will leave you with the last word. Two things. What's your advice to the parents in preparing their children? And what is your advice also for the children who want to be better than their parents?
Start with the children that want to be better than your parents. Absolutely be better than your parents. That's why your parents work so hard, is for you to be better than them. Being better than them doesn't mean you are better than them as an individual. Your character speaks to you in being able to represent your parents' hard work and toil, and you represent them as you step outside, not only yourself, but them as well. So I would encourage you to continue to try to find ways to communicate with your parents, so that way you will have a better opportunity to be successful moving forward. For parents, I would say the same thing, is that yes, they're children, but they're people.
Yes.
And this is no longer the time for you not to listen to who they are and what they want and what their dreams are and the things that they want to do. We're living in a time now where they're killing our children every single day. And without you, there is nothing for them. And you are their safe haven, you are their solace, you are their everything. And they need you. And I implore you to learn how to communicate with your children, as difficult as it may be, even if you have to start with paper and pen and write notes, or get a composite notebook and share it as a journal where you write in it one day and your kid writes in it another day. Whatever needs to happen to start opening that level of communication, I suggest that you do that immediately.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. So I just looked at the chat and someone was asking, Carlene was asking, can you elaborate more on Jam Pack?
So Jam Pact is a JAMPACT.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an organization that's been around for over 20 years. Again, I am the only Trinidadian in Jam Pact board. But I humbly accept the responsibility and love what I do with them. It is an organization that is committed to assisting in the education, the furthering education and assistance of that in the country. They mostly work with primary schools on the Kingston side of the island. And again, with being the connection that we have in Hanover, we were the ones that introduced the West to Jam Pack. So we're proud of that too. So yes, that's what we do. If you are in a primary school in Kingston and you're interested in getting some assistance, you feel free to reach out to us on our website as well, and you can send us an information link, and we will get involved with you to send barrels of stuff down to you as well.
So Jam Pack is not affiliated with any primary schools in the West?
Yes, they are now. Esher and Lucy Primary.
I guess so. Now I guess Middlesex Corner Primary should be one of the ones that you're thinking about.
Yes, I think we're definitely gonna need to do that. I'm gonna definitely do that. I'm gonna tell them about Middlesex Primary as well.
Yes, of course, because Sydney asked about it, and
and I see one of my board members are actually in the chat. Hi, Gloria.
Oh, there she is. She says great information, of course.
Yes. So definitely. So I would encourage Sydney to send us information about Middlesex Primary. We'll definitely look into that as well.
Well, yes, because I went to that primary school also, and also Lucy Primary. So yes, very, very, very good institution. Okay. So yes. So I thank you very much for taking the time out to spend with us. So is there anything else that you'd like to address before we wrap up?
No, just a huge thank you for having me tonight. It was wonderful. I always make jokes with my Jam Pack board, and I'm like, thank you for allowing this Trinidadian to come into this wonderful Jamaican space But we are all one family, and we all have one love, and the love is for our people and our children. And I hope that you all will feel free to contact me at any time if you have any questions moving forward to help with your children in this process of college access.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Campbell.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rossi's Brosis, for entertaining Mrs. Campbell and in her capacity. And she's being very humble to be with us today. She had other things to do, but she decided to take this time out to be with us. So we want to say thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And be well.
Thank you. Yes.
Bye-bye.
So viewers and subscribers, please subscribe to the Rossi's Brosis channel. We have a lot more very important persons to speak with as time goes on. So looking forward to see you next week. Thank you again for viewing. And Mrs. Campbell, thank you again.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye all.